What's going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's get into the books I read this week. Starting over in Marvel, we have a new Iron Man #1, Spencer Eckerman on this one. Not very familiar with the writer, but I thought I'd give it a chance, see what's going on. We have the Stark Roxxon War Part 1, so what's going on inside this book? Now, I will admit, I have not read an Iron Man book in quite some time. Just could not connect with the character they were writing, and I know he's been down on his luck. He lost all of his fortune, lost his armor, had to crawl back up from the beginnings. That's the basics that I got from reading this one. We're back in power now. We have all of our suits. We have the board again. We have our company under control. And what's going to happen? We're going to rip it all away. So we're going to start back over from the basics. I knew we were kind of heading in that direction just based on the cover alone. He's got like this steampunk version of his armor right now. He's back in the cave hammering it out, and he's going to take on this combination of enemies that he's been building up over the years. They're basically buying him out right now. And the board, the shareholders and everything are buying into this. So we're going to be starting over again. Not entirely sure why, but you know, here we are. So Iron Man issue #1. If you wanted to see him in his prime again, back in action, you're gonna have to wait a little while longer because we're getting knocked back down. This is what they typically do with these like overpowered, super wealthy human type characters. Batman, for instance. What makes him interesting? A lot of things. Let's strip him away of everything, make him go back to the basics, and see how he can crawl back out. This is another one of those stories. Iron Man #1, what'd you guys think? Next up is X Factor issue #3. So Mark Russell's on this one, which is the main reason why I'm digging into this. And we relaunched all of our new X titles. So I wanted to jump in here, see what's going on. So a social media corporation is basically running this X-Men team. They are ruthless. They're all about those likes and subscribes. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And they're putting together this X Factor team with a bunch of disposable characters. We introduce ourselves to a lot of new members of the team. The fan favorite being this old granny who can't die. Her mutant power is just that. So whenever she dies, she finds herself okay at the end. And she is on this team right now as a contingency plan, somebody that can basically do whatever they need to do to satisfy the story, and that's put to good use in here because they are sent to Mars to take out this base or whatever, figure out what's going on, and her powers are on full display on there. So Havoc's trying to manage all this stuff. He's trying to manage his teammates, the mission, his own personal life with Polaris and whatnot, and this organization that runs their team. So it has all the satire and all the humor that Mark Russell can bring to a book, but unfortunately, it's like shackled into this X-Men world. He's doing the best he can do in this book, I think. The art is really cool as well from Quinn. And so, you know, it's a decent book. If you like Mark Russell, you're going to love this one. That's why I'm reading it. Let me know if you are, though, down below. Next one is X-Men issue #6. McKay is on this one, and I'd say that if you've been enjoying 1 through 5 so far, you're going to dig this one. If you haven't been, if you've been on the fence, kind of like me, it's more of the same right here. We have Magic Ann Edie, I think her name is, going around trying to rescue this little girl because she kind of threw up the gang sign early on in this issue, and that was kind of like a red flag that she needs their help in some way. So we infiltrate her life a little bit, and we bring her into the team, and of course that causes a lot of trouble with Cyclops and everybody else. There's a really cool conversation between Beast and Magneto in here. You know, this is a beast. This is a different Beast than we've seen in the Krakoa era for sure. And we have a Magneto right now who's a little bit down right now. And so we're trying to like figure these things out. Those two characters are actually pretty interesting. I wish they'd lean into that a little bit more. But we uncover the truth behind this little girl's past and like why she's afraid to be where she is at the moment, and maybe some of the devastation she's caused, and she's hiding from that right now. Other than that, it's kind of like a slice of life kind of a book. They're sitting around in the kitchen, they're doing dishes, they're talking about the next mission, things like that. The art is really cool. It's got definitely that Ryan Stegman vibe, although it is from Diaz and Parsons is on the ink. The coloring is handled pretty well, and but the overall story, there's something missing there. I don't exactly know what it is, but I'm not like interested in this book right now just yet. So X-Men issue #6. Let me know what you're reading it. Let me know your thoughts. All right, I'm going to cheat and throw in Dark Knights of Steel All Winter. We have issue #4 right here. I really love this series. It's really cool. We have this Bruce Wayne character who was brought into the story in the previous issue. He's teaming up with Slade and this little boy who's got this special connection with the green right now, we were told in the previous issue. This Batman character is like an amalgamation between Batman and Superman from his world, and we're seeing a lot of those powers on display. Looks like Batman, functions like Superman, but he's a little bit suppressed right now because of this chaos lost magic that was unleashed on the world in the previous volume, I suppose. And so we understand what's going on there. It's a theme that we've seen in a Superman story before, but the art in this book is really great, and the story itself is really compelling. It reminds me of like a Conan book set in this world. And of course, there's a lot of visual similarities between like a Conan book and this Dark Knights of Steel theme, but I think they handled the relationships and the dialogue and just their overall situation really well in the series. So it's got me really excited to explore this world a little bit more, meet more characters, and maybe go back and read volume 1 because I haven't yet done that. So Christoph is doing a great job in this series. All Winter issue number 4. Make sure to check it out. All right, arguably one of the biggest books of the week. We have Absolute Wonder Woman issue number 1. Kelly Thompson on this one, the great Hayden Sherman on the art. There are so many cool elements in this book, and it goes all the way back to her origin story in here. She does not get raised in Themyscira. She's actually delivered as an infant into hell, and she's being raised by someone down there. I'll let you read the story and figure it out. But her overall goodness, like her character, shines through so strongly in this book that even hell itself could not deter her in becoming something great and grand. Despite all the attempts that hell has on her life and everything like that, she overcomes all of that. And it's a beautiful story of her growing up in this environment with this other caregiver. And it all comes to a head as Earth is attacked by this giant monster who's opening a portal with like hordes of enemies coming through. Great battle scenes in here. And it's just another great example of Diana coming up, overcoming all the odds, and just having her character shine through and like win the day. That's exactly what this book is about, despite her upbringing and everything like that. Really spectacular book, a crazy artwork in here too, and a great ending. This was a fantastic issue number 1. Make sure you're picking it up. Next up is Hellblazer Dead in America. We have issue number 10, the penultimate issue of this series. I'll be sad to see this go. Simon Spurrier on this one. We have Aaron Campbell and Jordi Belair. Now, I will say that I have no idea what's going on in this story anymore. Each issue seems to like muddy the waters for me overall. The only thing that kind of keeps me coming back at this point is this like loose narrative that I have in my head and this amazing artwork by Aaron Campbell. It is absolutely spectacular what he's doing inside this book. So that's what's really holding me through. Everything in this book is really dreamy, and it's really hard to kind of make these connections. We have some narrative dumps in here that I suppose is supposed to help the reader understand what's going on, but all it did was reinforce the tiny little bits that I understand at this moment, but it didn't really quite explain like why these characters are doing the things that they're doing. Why did they turn on each other all of a sudden? Like, what's at the end of this tunnel? What are we actually doing? Who are these 3 ghosts that are chasing us down? Are they like ancient beings that were explained to us at one part over the issues and I just completely forgot about it? I don't really know. So I'm kind of losing the narrative here severely, but I turn the page and I see stuff like this and I'm like, okay, I know why I'm reading this book right now. So I will say a collected read would be really beneficial for this, I think. 11 issues in. It is a great read overall, but it's very complex and I'm losing the narrative. Let me know if you guys agree. What'd you guys think of this down below? Ron V's Off Detective. We have Tom Taylor on here. I thought I'd check it out, even though most of Tom Taylor's writing doesn't quite jive with me. I wanted to check this out and see where we're going with Batman, see if it's something that I want to continue reading. And I gotta say, the art in this book is absolutely spectacular, but I almost feel like there's a certain level of pandering going on with the reader's emotions inside of here. It's like, what bigger way to make a splash in a new series as a new writer on this series than to like pull at the heartstrings of people and really kind of, you know, mess with Batman's origin a little bit, bring his parents in, talk about Joe Chill a little bit, things like that. Put Batman in a vulnerable position and give him some opportunities to maybe circumvent some of those weaknesses, right? Take some shortcuts here and there, you know, be that prime Batman that we used to be. Again, there's lots of emotional parts inside this book. A lot of like parental lessons learned been carried down and like introduced into the story as we go. But I feel like this is all things we've seen before. These are all conversations or thoughts that Batman has had in previous issues. And I'm not exactly sure if there's anything necessarily new here, but these are like legacy questions that Batman is always going to have. And it just kind of creeps up again inside of here. Again, I think the art's like the best thing in here. We get to meet an old friend of his and she's working on some kind of shortcuts to help like longevity and things like that. So there's definitely going to be some old concepts creeping up inside this book. So I'm not exactly sure I'm going to keep reading it, but let me know what you guys thought of Detective 1090 down below. Zatanna, Bring Down the House, issue number 5. What a spectacular series this has been. This limited series was great, so if you have not read it in single issue format, pick it up in the collected edition because it was actually really interesting. We have Tamaki on here, and we have Rodriguez on the art. The art is really something special in this book. The colors alone, they're flat, but the way that they all jive together is just so well done. The covers, too, have been absolutely spectacular, especially those B covers, so check that one out. But Zatanna is coming into her own at this moment. She's kind of like denied or suppressed her ability in magic over the years because of a tragedy with her father. She overcomes that. She meets a few more people. She understands the magical landscape a little bit more. This is her coming into her own and like facing that dragon at the end. And then where do we go from there? So I will say the only criticism I have is I wish there was 6 issues, and that's a good problem to have. I really wish they would have dragged out this final confrontation a little bit more, gave us a little bit more training montage maybe, or maybe spent some time after the big battle to kind of see where she's going to go or what we're going to do now. So I will say the biggest disappointment is it wasn't longer, which is a great problem to have, but really interesting artwork, cool story, Black Label book. If you haven't checked this out, pick up the collected edition. It'd be well worth it. Let me know if you read it down below. Conan the Barbarian, we have issue number 16, Jim Zub on this one. We have Birthweight on the art. This is kind of that conclusion to the Frost Giant's daughter, which is an area that was a little bit unexplored early on. Jim Zub and company decided to flush that out a little bit more. In fact, in our conversation with Jim Zub, he thought it was going to be a really cool opportunity to explore what Conan would do in a situation where he starts realizing magic and supernatural is real. This is kind of one of those early times in his life where that's the case. And so we're still trying to get over that experience right now. We don't quite know what it means. Was it a dream? It felt real. What's going on? There's some weird people around us right now we don't quite trust, and we flesh that out a little bit more too. And so this is a vulnerable Conan, like in his psyche almost, but physically not. He takes on whoever he needs to take on to survive the day, and we kind of process this thing that just happened to him, and we're going to keep exploring it more because this crisis of faith is something that Conan's been dealing with his whole life. We have a little bit more about that in this book as well, and it's something that we need to put to an end, right? So we're going to be pushing forward and seeing what happens with Conan. This has been a spectacular read. Art has been really killer as well. Savage Sword, Battle of the Blackstone. It's all been so good. So make sure to check out Conan the Barbarian. We have issue number 16. Let me know if you're reading it. Let's go over to Image now. We have Tin Can Society issue number 2. We have Peter Warren listed as the writer, but also Rick Remender. So that's pretty cool that he's on this as well. Really interesting story. We have a group of kids. One of them was handicapped. He had a really rough time in school and whatnot, but they formed like this clan. These group of kids got together and they became like best friends. Over time, they shifted around and things like that. They went in different directions. But this one kid who they kind of circled around, he grew up and he became essentially like an Iron Man type character, providing all these like robotics for people with disabilities, artificial legs, things like that. He just took his to the next level and essentially became Iron Man. But he struggled with like, how do I manage these powers? Like, what should I be doing? I feel like I need to do more. Well, this is a murder mystery because eventually that person is taken out and like everyone's a suspect right now. So it's a really cool story about like who did it, who could benefit the most from this, and like why would they do it? There's a big motive thing here too. Really cool cast of characters. They each have their own motives, but they're all, cleared so far. But we're uncovering a little bit more as to like who would want to do this and how it could be possible to take on a man that has so much power, right? So Tin Can Society is handling all these dynamics really well. If you're not reading it, I highly recommend it. Let me know if you are though, down below. Next up, we have Lee Lowridge on Stand Still, issue number 3. Probably my favorite issue of the series so far. Our main villain right now is abusing this like time-stopping technology that he has. We're following another couple right now. They're trying to replicate this technology because they know how dangerous it could be in the hands of the wrong person. But in this issue, this villain actually uses his power to get back at some like influencer who personally affected a friend of his. And it was handled really interestingly. But it also shows like how crazy this person is and how dangerous he can be, and he's getting closer and closer to where our heroes are at the moment. And so they have to like kick it in high gear and like try to replicate this technology because there's no other way to fight this guy. He's really scary. He's got some insane tech on him right now, and they have to do whatever they can do to match that, right? So Stand Still, issue number 3, probably my favorite one of the series so far. Let me know if you're reading it. Let me know your thoughts. Daniel Warren Johnson, Riley Rasmo, and Mike Spicer on the Moon is following us issue number 2. I like this one better than issue number 1, and I loved issue number 1. And, this one feels like an issue number 3 because it gives us a lot of context about what's been happening, how these parents got to where they are, what's wrong with their kid, and why they're in this position to begin with. Like, how is it even possible? We unpack all that in here, which is great for an issue number 2. So if you read issue number 1, you know that these parents are in this like weird fantasy world, and they are taking on these like weird threats and things like that. It's completely off the charts. And at the very end, you notice that they come out of like these virtual reality kinds of headsets. They're actually tapping into their child's dream state. And that's what's going on inside this kid's head right now. And they're trying to like battle the evil that's inside there. Again, we unpack all that inside this issue. So it's handled really, really well. The art inside this is crazy good as well, man. I mean, like Rasmo and Mike Spicer and Johnson, when they're like trading off pages or scenes and everything, they're just handling this so well. And it's just like a breath of fresh air. And you could just sit there and stare at these pages for so long. So even if like the story sucked, you have at least that, but it doesn't. It's awesome. So you have a complete package here. The Moon is following us, issue number 2, hits on the heartstrings, beautiful presentation, cool story as well. Make sure to read this one. Next up from Walsh, we have a new number 1, Null Hunter from Image Comics. This one was really great as well. We have some really awesome art in here and an interesting story about a soldier trying to redeem himself. He's heavily modified right now. I think he doesn't have any arms and things like that. He's been through this war. He's done some really bad things, but it comes to find out that somebody kind of tapped into his technology a little bit, made him do the things that he did, and now he's on this revenge mission sent by his father to take out the people that did this to him, did this to his family, did this to his whole culture. And so now we're heading down that path right now where it's basically just like a revenge mission. But there's some sinister things going on in the background. Of course, dad's using his son, things like that. The board is untrustworthy, things like that. But amazing artwork in here, so much color, so much gore, and it's just awesome. So Null Hunter issue number 1. If you skipped out on this one, you might want to go back and grab it. It was a lot of fun. Let me know if you read it. Michael Walsh killing it again on Frankenstein. We have issue number 3 right here. If you were shied away by Universal Monsters after maybe the Black Lagoon series, man, come back, jump into Frankenstein because this has been a spectacular book. So much emotion in here. The paneling is beautiful. The coloring, the color palette, so good. Toni Marie Griffin is on this one as well. And like the story they're telling here is a story that's really Frankenstein adjacent. Very emotional book. We're kind of following the perspective of this young boy, and his father is recently deceased. He becomes part of Frankenstein's monster, and there's this journey that he just wants to be connected and be around, and it's just insane. The monster is loose right now, nobody knows what to do, and it's just a really well done book. Beautiful scenes in this and everything. They take their time on these panels, which is really great. So often in comics, it's like jump to the next action scene and keep jumping, but the emotional beats that this book has is just spot on. So they're doing a really great job from a pacing perspective, adding that horror element in here, and then tying it all together with amazing artwork. So Frankenstein issue number 3, amazing book, especially for October. Let me know if you're reading it. All right, next up is Void Rivals issue number 13. Kirkman on this one. I'm least connected to this book than most, I would say. There's a lot of great things happening in here, but I feel like this is like a love letter or just an Easter egg treat for those who are really well in the know on the Energon universe, or maybe even like G.I. Joe, perhaps. But I find myself turning the page and seeing these really dramatic moments with these awesome looking characters and thinking like, what am I supposed to get from that? Like, I don't quite know. And this book right here really jumps around to a lot of different characters and shows you all like what they're doing, and they don't spend enough time with each of them to like remind me why they're there, or what they're trying to do, or who they are, or what their relationships are. We have our main cast, and I understand what's going on there, but there's a lot of ancillary characters they show off in this book as well, and I just don't know what's going on or what to make of it. I find myself trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to take away from that? And that's just like a me problem. So if that is the case, then it is what it is. But the art is handled really well. And I would say like the ending is a little bit abrupt too. But honestly, I think that Void Rivals is going to be that sleeper foundational book in the Energon universe. That's why I'm reading it right now, because I want to be there for when everything starts connecting and making sense. Hasn't quite done it for me. 13 issues in. Let me know how you guys feel though, down below. Next up is Grommets issue number 5. Holy hell, like this book gave me so much anxiety reading it, because I've been in situations where you go to a party, you're hanging out, things are a little dangerous, there's people you don't know around, and like hell starts breaking loose, and it's just like, oh guys, we got to get the hell out of here right now before we get killed or something bad happens in here. And that's exactly what's going on in here. But throw in that nostalgic 80s vibe, and like things get real dangerous real fast. So, you know, we have our gang right here, our skater gang, and they're hanging out at the house. They got some girls over and stuff, but all of a sudden these older jocks start coming in and they are drunk, pissed, and looking for a fight. And that's exactly what happens in here. They start hunting down anybody they can find and they just start taking it out on them. We also have this cool moment where our lead character is kind of like hanging out with this girl and they're flirting around and things like that, but things go south really, really quick. But again, it's all the emotion, the coloring, the artwork in here that brings this anxiety back. And like, man, this is the most anxiety-inducing book that I've read so far this week, and it's all because of like how dangerous this time period can be, especially with all those emotions and stuff flying. So Grommets issue number 5 continues to be really strong and just be like an emotional, cool, nostalgic trip. Let me know if you're reading it. Next up is Rook Exodus issue number 6, Jeff Johns, and we have Phable on the art. Of course, we have Brad Anderson on here as well. Really cool story. There's a really awesome battle in here with our new big bad that we're fighting, and Rook, the character himself, kind of went through a revelation in the previous issue. His connection with his crows and the birds and whatnot is way stronger now, and he's kind of made peace with this, and he's kind of tied it into like his previous life back on Earth and his relationship with his father and everything, so that was handled really well. Pulls forward inside of this one, but this is a big battle issue with like the main guy who's been just tearing shit up this entire time. And so we get some amazing artwork in here and just great scenes all in all. So all of our heroes were able to combine forces and take on Ursa, and we're heading towards the next thing, right? Like Direwolf's father, is he alive? Is he not? Is he mutated? Is he transformed? We don't quite know, but he holds the key to the future right now. So we have to find him, we have to figure out what's going on, and we have to use our resources that we just got. So if you're not reading Rook, I highly recommend checking it out in a collected format. The first 6 issues will probably be collected at some point, so check it out if you haven't yet. Let me know if you have, though, down below. Next up is Jason Aaron on TMNT. We have issue number 3, the Leonardo issue right here, seeing what's going on with this character. So I will say this has the same pattern I've noticed with the first couple of issues. It starts in a way that I just could not care less about. Like the first half of this issue, I'm just like, why are we talking about this right now? We need to move forward. There's some lesson learned. There's some, seeing what's going on with these turtles moments in the first half of these books, and like, most of them have been okay so far, and the back half of this book is like, okay, let's get our turtles together and let's face this whatever this threat is, the Foot coming back to get them for whatever reason. So just like the other 2 issues, we have our turtle here on their own. He's secluded, trying to find some kind of meaning in his life. He takes on whatever local threat is around at that time, and then joins the bigger battle that's happening right now with his brothers. So the last 6-7 pages are great. The first half of this one, it's kind of like filler, to be honest with you. I know it was like needed to figure out where we are and to move past that point, but this is like the first 4 issues of this run, and I don't think you have any time to waste it on those kinds of moments. I want to jump right in and see what's going on. I don't want to have to read 15 pages before I get to some really cool stuff, but that's what we have right now. It's going to be a couple more issues before we get the whole team back together, I would imagine, and take on this threat. So a little bit of a slow start, but I'm going to hang in there and just see what happens once we're all back together. What's the next plan? Who else are we going to put in this team besides the obvious? That's why I'm reading TMNT. Let me know if you're liking it, though, down below. Have you ever wanted to see the Great Gatsby team up with Sherlock Holmes to take on Godzilla? Of course you have. So if you are in that boat, man, check out Masterpiece Theater Godzilla issue number 1 from Tom Scioli. IDW's putting this one out. If you're a fan of Tom Scioli in general, if you like his artwork style, things like that Kirby-esque style, dude, you got to be checking this one out. It is such a good book. There's going to be a lot more people that are going to be joining the fray here as well, teaming up with Sherlock Holmes and Gatsby, and it's going to be really fun to see like what he puts together and what kind of story he's going to have here. We have like Jules Verne in here too. We're going to have some time travel shenanigans coming up as well. So again, if you're a Tom Scioli fan, you know what you're probably in for. If you're not, man, this is just a spectacular book. So make sure to check this one out. And he actually did a book about Stan Lee and Jack Kirby as well. So you can dive into those and just get yourself familiar with like his style artistically and storytelling wise. But Godzilla Masterpiece Theater, this has been such a fun book so far. Make sure to check this one out. All right, guys, that's all I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. While you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the comments.